Every day, millions of people finish work at roughly the same time. By 10 p.m., some of them have moved their lives forward, others haven't moved at all. What's interesting is that most of them don't even realize it, because the difference between success and stagnation rarely happens during working hours. It happens afterwards, between 5 p.m. and 10 p.m., a 5-hour window that most people waste without ever stopping to think about it. It might not seem important today, but the way you spend those hours will determine where you are a year from now. Your income, your fitness, your confidence, your opportunities, your future. Because while everyone focuses intensely on what they do for work, very few people pay any attention at all to what they do after it. The invisible trap. Let's be honest about something first. Most people don't leave work feeling energized. They leave feeling tired, mentally drained, and ready to switch off completely after spending 8 or more hours giving their best attention to something that isn't theirs. And there is nothing wrong with that on its own. Recovery is a real and legitimate need, not a weakness. The problem starts when recovery quietly turns into escape, and the line between the two is so thin that almost nobody notices the moment they cross it. You get home, you sit on the sofa, you check your phone. A few videos become an hour, an episode becomes 3. You tell yourself you'll start tomorrow, and before you know it, it's time for bed. Then the next day arrives and the exact same thing happens again. Not because you're lazy, not because you lack ambition, but because without ever intending to, you've built a routine that keeps your life exactly where it is. And that's the scary part of all of this. Most people aren't destroying their future through massive, dramatic mistakes. They're doing it through small decisions, repeated hundreds of times, each one too small on its own to notice. The Great Divide. Imagine 2 people. Both are 28 years old, both earn similar salaries, both finish work at 5 p.m. On paper, their lives look identical in every meaningful way you could measure them. Same income bracket, same general health, same number of hours in the day. But after work, they make completely different choices. And those choices are so small in the moment that neither of them would think to call it a decision at all. The first person goes home and spends every evening consuming, scrolling, watching, distracting themselves from the day that just ended, filling the space between dinner and sleep with whatever requires the least effort to start. The second person also relaxes, the same as anyone would, because they're human and the day was real. But after that, they spend 1 hour building, learning a skill, training in the gym, working on a side project, creating content, reading something with substance, improving something, anything, just a little, just 1 hour, nothing extreme. Nothing glamorous. Nobody else even notices it happening. Fast forward 3 years. One person's life looks almost exactly the same as it did on day 1. Same job, same routine, same sense that something should have changed by now, but hasn't. The other has transformed in ways that are now impossible to miss. Better health, more opportunities, more confidence, more income, more control over how their days actually feel. Not because they were smarter, not because they worked harder during the day since their working hours were genuinely identical, because they understood something most people miss entirely. Your future is not built in dramatic moments, the big leaps people imagine when they picture change happening. It's built in ordinary evenings, one after another, accumulating quietly until the pattern itself becomes a life. Why most people never change here is what keeps people stuck in exactly the same place for years at a time, despite genuinely wanting something different. They think transformation requires massive action. They think they need to wake up at 4 a.m., work 18-hour days, sacrifice everything they currently enjoy, and completely reinvent themselves overnight in one decisive, dramatic move. But that is not how change actually works, and chasing that version of it is precisely what causes most attempts to fail before they ever get started. The truth is much less exciting than that, and much more powerful precisely because of it. Real change comes from consistency. One workout, one chapter, 1 hour, one skill session, one video, one application, one conversation. Repeated again and again, week after week, long after the initial burst of motivation that started it has completely faded into the background of ordinary life. Most people underestimate what they can achieve in a year because they badly overestimate what they can achieve in a single week. They sprint at the start, full of energy. They burn out within a month. They quit quietly without ever announcing it. Then they start over from nothing a few months later, having lost all the ground they covered the first time around, convinced the problem was a lack of willpower rather than a flawed approach to begin with. Meanwhile, the person who simply shows up every evening, without drama, without needing to announce it to anyone, without requiring motivation every single time before they're willing to begin, keeps moving forward regardless of how they feel on any given night. And eventually the gap between the two of them becomes impossible to ignore, even to people who weren't paying attention the whole way through. The 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. system. So what should you actually do during this window? First, stop trying to optimize every single minute of it. You are not a machine. If you've worked all day, take real time to decompress, eat properly, go for a walk, relax, let your mind actually recover instead of just numbing it. But then protect 1 hour, just one. 1 hour dedicated entirely to becoming the person you want to become. Not the person you already are today, but the person you are actually trying to build over time. Use that hour to learn a genuinely valuable skill, or to start building a side income, or to improve your fitness, or to read something that actually adds to your thinking, or to create something of your own, or simply to plan the next stage of whatever matters most to your future. It doesn't need to be the same activity every night. It just needs to be intentional. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is momentum, because momentum changes everything about how the rest of your life unfolds from here. When you win one evening, you become measurably more likely to win the next one, and then the one after that. And eventually, what started as a small, deliberate effort quietly becomes identity. Not something you have to force yourself to do, but something you simply are. The choice gets made tonight. Most people will finish work today and hand the rest of their evening straight over to distractions. Tomorrow, they'll do exactly the same thing. And next year, they'll genuinely wonder why nothing in their life has changed. Don't be one of them. The hours between 5 p.m. and 10 p.m. may look completely ordinary from the outside, but they are not. They are where skills are actually built, where bodies are transformed, where businesses are quietly started one evening at a time, long before anyone else notices, where confidence is earned slowly through repeated proof rather than a single decision, and where futures are created in the gap between when work ends and when the day finally closes. You don't need more time than you already have. You don't need perfect conditions, or a perfect mood, or the right circumstances to finally line up. You don't need a completely different life waiting on the other side of some imagined transformation. You just need to stop wasting the window that is already sitting in front of you every single day, whether you use it or not, because 1 year from now, you'll either be genuinely grateful for how you spent your evenings one ordinary hour at a time, or you'll be sitting in the exact same place wishing you had started sooner. The choice gets made tonight.